the Tops more than anything was an unbelievable education because the time that I was touring with them, they didn't have a deal. They weren't, they were away from Motown, no record deal, and then Motown brought them back after I think the first Motown special. They re-signed the Tops, did some records with them, and did some things with the Temps. But Levi Stubbs left an indelible print on me as a person because he when we were on tour with them, man, we were riding on the school bus with no bathroom. And we were on a 3-package tour with the Spinners and Tavares, both of whom at that time had record deals and bigger hits than the Tops did. So we rode the school bus with the Tops, their rhythm section, which were 4 college-age white guys out of Detroit. There was a group called One. And they look like rockers. These guys had, like long hair and stuff. They were young cats, man. And this horn section from Houston, Texas. This is a touring group, and the horn section played behind all 3 acts. And the interesting thing about Detroit is that those 4 young guys knew the Tops music intimately, man, like unbelievably tight. The guitar player was a guy. The musical director was a guy who was their rhythm guitar player, who had been with them a number of years, who was from Galveston. So he was the musical director, and then you have these 4 guys who I think, on the side of doing the Tops gig, had their own rock band. But when they played Motown music, it sounded like they were right off the factory line of Detroit musicians that came out of that environment, man, because they had grown up in that environment. Just like you said about Decurion. People that grew up in that city, they access that vibe.
Like Jarvis.
Yeah, they know those tunes. I mean, it's a part. It reminded me of the same, like you can just go around parts of New York and you see Italian cab drivers that are singing along with opera, because it's passed on from generation to generation inside those families that music is cultural. So these guys, man, it's kind of a real family environment there. So we were in Mobile, Alabama, man. This is something that's never left me. In 1980, and we had finished a gig, and a guitar player named Rock Tipton, who was playing with the Spinners, got on the bus, and the Spinners rhythm section had to ride from City Hall in Mobile back to the Holiday Inn with the rest of us on this school bus. So he gets on the bus and he's sitting back and he starts bitching and complaining about having to ride on a school bus for 15 minutes. He's complaining, man, really, really going through everything, being a real jerk. And so finally, man, Levi was sitting in the front of the bus and he got up, man, and the guy was kind of sitting there, and Levi walked up on him. Let's say that this is a guy. Levi walks up to him and stands right over him, man, and said, "Man, who are you, man? What's your name?" And it was a 15-minute bus ride, but for that guy, as long as 15 minutes of his life, man. Because Levi went back to the 40s and says, "Man, you don't have a right to say anything. You should be happy to ride on a school bus." He says, I have Grammy Awards. I'm riding on this bus. Who are you? What have you done? Who have you played with? How long have you been in the business? And then he says, "Man, I remember being on tour. When we first started, we would have been happy to have had a school bus. We were riding on the bus, and there was a hole down the middle of the floor. Our families were on the bus. Our kids were on the bus. It was cold outside, and to get warm, we had to get off the bus and go outside. That's how cold it was on this bus." So for the rest of that time, man, Levi was right in this guy's face, this far, with his finger in his face, yelling at him, and he gave him an education in the music business. And I sat there, because I was tired of hearing the guy, complain and everything. But I sat there and I looked at this cat, and I looked at Levi telling him, and I'm listening to every word Levi's telling him, right? And this is a guy I grew up hearing singing Sugar Pie Honey Bunch on TV, sitting on Ed Sullivan, a star, saying, "I can ride on a school bus, and I'm not bitching. Who are you?" And this guy was easily about 6'4", 6'5", towered over Levi. But man, he didn't dare move. Because for one, he knew what he was saying was the truth. And he broke him all the way down, man. all the way down, broke him down. And I sat there and I'm saying to myself, not only am I saying to myself, I'm glad I'm not that stupid to have made an ass out of myself like that, but I'm saying to myself, let me listen to this cat, man, and learn something, you know, about this business and about life. Because that, of all the Motown songs, when I hear that goom 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 goom, I mean, I'm a kid now at my grandmother's house listening to this little AM radio, and the same guy that sang that tune is standing in front of me on a red, white, and blue school bus with no bathroom, talking about being humble and preaching a sermon. Never have forgotten it. And I've played with them a few times since then. Because just as much as that, and some people might say that was rock bottom for them, when the whole Big Chill thing came and that soundtrack was there and people are dancing to Tops tunes, those guys went right back up, man.
Because they stuck with it, right?
Because they never quit. And that, up until Obie's death, that was the Motown group that never changed personnel. And I understand that Levi is really ill right now, man, and hearing that just really, that's something that really hit me, man. That cat. And we're talking about after this school bus, Little House of Horrors, where, you know, he's singing and that and all that. I mean, the Tops came all the way back from being all the way flat, man, and survived, you know, because the music stayed central to them, the camaraderie that first got them there, and it was a real education for me being on that tour, man. You know, I was at the time that I did that, I was teaching part-time in a high school in Houston, and I got the principal's permission to take one of the high school kids on tour with us, a trombone player who was a senior at the time, and was talking about, he had scholarship offers like piled up, and said, I'm not going to college, you know, I think I want to play. I said, okay, you think you want to play? I called his mom, and I talked to the principal and said, let him come out here. It was a short run, and I said, let him come out here and do this trip. And he was on that bus ride, seeing this whole thing, and we got back to school. He said, man, I'm going to college. I want to learn all I can, because I know that I can be out there, but I know I don't know it anywhere near what I need to know. I mean, it was an unbelievable education being on that trip. The guy that was the Spinners musical director was a guy named Maurice King, who had, if you go to the Motown Museum now, Studio A is set up like you're about to walk into a session. And Maurice King's charts is sitting on the music stand. He was chief arranger at Motown and the person that gave the Tops their name. So he was a Spinners musical director on this tour we were on. And every day was like being in school. But the final exam was Levi's lecture.